Our rideshare driver took a wrong turn into the Scottish countryside last night. Something came out of the dark and took him. Then it came for us. I'm writing this from a hospital waiting room in Inverness. My hands have stopped shaking enough to type. I don't know what else to do with what's inside my head right now, except get it out. So I'm getting it out. The police have taken my statement. I told them everything. I watched the officer's face go through the full range of human expression and settle, finally, into the particular blankness of someone who has decided to process the paperwork first and have the larger existential crisis later. I understand that. I'm doing the same thing. Owen is dead. Carl is dead. I don't know what happened to the police officer. I drove away before I could find out, and I will carry that with me for the rest of my life, however long or short that turns out to be. Anyway, here's what happened. We'd been in Edinburgh for the weekend, a 30th birthday trip. Owen's. 3 days of old city pubs and too much whiskey, and the particular looseness that comes from being somewhere that isn't home with people you've known long enough to be fully yourself around. Owen was 30, I was 29, Carl was 28, and we'd been friends since our first year of university, when we'd all ended up in the same terrible shared house and bonded over the shared awfulness of it. A decade of friendship. I want you to know that before anything else. We booked a rideshare at 11:30 on Sunday night from a bar on the Royal Mile. The plan was a late drive north. We'd rented a cottage outside Inverness for the week. Owen's idea. The kind of ambitious itinerary that seems achievable at the planning stage and slightly brutal in execution. 4 hours, more or less, through the night. We'd sleep in a car and wake up in the Highlands. It had seemed romantic when we'd planned it 3 months earlier, and it seemed less romantic at 11:30 with 3 days of drinking behind us. But we got in the car anyway. The driver's name on the app was listed as Gary. The car was a dark blue estate, clean, smelling faintly of one of those pioneer fresheners shaped like a tree. Gary himself was unremarkable in a way that makes you feel vaguely guilty for noticing. 50s, heavy-set, thinning hair, a fleece jacket over a collared shirt. He confirmed the destination, made a brief remark about the weather, and pulled out into Edinburgh traffic without drama. Entirely normal, entirely, completely, mundanely normal. Owen was in the front, Carl and I were in the back. The city fell away behind us, the castle vanishing in the wing mirror. The orange glow of the streets thinning as we hit the ring road and then the A9 north. And within 20 minutes, we were in that particular Scottish darkness that you don't get in England, where the sky is so clear and so large, and the human lights are so sparse that the stars seem almost aggressive in their brightness. Owen fell asleep almost immediately, his head against the window. Carl lasted another 20 minutes before going the same way. I watched the road for a while, and then I watched the dark hills rolling past on either side, and somewhere in there, I must have drifted off too. I woke up because the car had stopped. Not slowed, stopped. The engine was off. I sat up and looked out the window, and everything was wrong. We were on a single track road, not a lay-by, not a passing place. A road narrow enough that 2 cars couldn't have passed each other, surfaced in the center and dropping off into the grass and heather on both sides. No lights anywhere, no other cars. The headlights were off, and the darkness outside was total in a way that you only get when you're genuinely, completely far from anywhere. The kind of dark that has mass. Gary was still in the driver's seat. He was facing forward. The app on my phone showed our location as a blue dot in an enormous expanse of pale green. Nowhere near the route line. Nowhere near anything. "Where are we?" I said. He didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched in a way I felt in my chest before I understood why. Then he said, without turning around, "Everyone out of the car." Something in his voice had changed. Not dramatically, not a movie villain shift in register. Something subtler and worse. The quality of a person who has stopped performing normality because they no longer need to. The particular flatness of someone who has made a decision and is on the other side of it. I shook Carr's shoulder. He came awake fast, sat up, read the room before he fully oriented himself. I watched his face go through the same process mine had. The dark outside, the stopped car, the wrongness of the silence, and watched him reach the same conclusion. He reached across and grabbed Owen's arm. Owen woke slowly. "Are we?" he started, and then he saw Gary, and whatever he was going to say dissolved. Gary had turned around in his seat. In his right hand was a gun, compact, black, held with the ease of someone who had held it many times. Gary had turned around in his seat. In his right hand was a gun, compact, black, held with the ease of someone who had held it many times. His face was entirely calm. "Out," he said. "All three of you. Now." We got out. The cold hit immediately. Late September in the Highlands past midnight, and the temperature on the open moor was something else entirely. A wet, penetrating cold that came with the smell of heather and peat and the enormous emptiness of the land around us. The sky above was extraordinary. Stars in their millions. The Milky Way, a genuine smear across the black. No light pollution for miles in any direction. Under different circumstances, it would have been breathtaking. Under these circumstances, it told me exactly how far from help we were. Gary came around the car and positioned himself with his back to the driver's door, the gun moving between the three of us with the practiced ease of someone running a familiar drill. He was unhurried. That was the worst part. There was no agitation in him, no adrenaline, no sense that this was unusual. This was Gary doing a thing he had done before. "On your knees," he said. "Hands on your heads, all of you." We knelt on the road. The tarmac was cold and damp through my jeans. Owen was to my left, Carl to my right. I was looking at the road surface, and I was thinking with a clarity that fear sometimes produces, the specific sharpness of a mind that has shed everything non-essential. That we were three men kneeling on a road in the middle of nowhere at midnight with a gun pointing at the back of our heads, and no one in the world who knew where we were. Gary collected our phones from our jacket pockets one by one, keeping the gun at the base of each of our skulls as he leaned down. He took Carl's wallet. He took the watch Owen had been given for his 30th 2 days earlier. He did it methodically, without comment. When it was done, he stepped back, and there was a silence that I understood. In a way I have never understood anything so clearly before or since. Was the silence before something final. "Gary," Owen said. His voice was steady. That was Owen. steadier than any of us. Always. You don't have to do this. We've not seen your face clearly. We can't identify the road. You can drive away right now, and we can't do anything about it. Gary said nothing. The gun didn't move. Please, Carl said, quietly, not begging. Just a word offered plainly, as one person to another. Gary raised the gun. The sound came from the darkness to our left. It was low. So low it was almost below hearing. Something you felt in your chest cavity and the bones of your face before your ears registered it as sound. It lasted perhaps 3 seconds and then stopped. And the silence that followed had a completely different quality to the silence before it. The silence before had been empty. This one was full. Something was in it. Gary heard it. His head turned toward the heather on the left side of the road, and his gun hand dropped a fraction. Just a fraction. The involuntary response of a body that has received a signal it wasn't expecting and doesn't know how to classify. His face changed. The practiced calm developed a crack, and through the crack came something I recognized because I was experiencing it myself. The specific, primitive fear of a person who's just understood that they're not the most dangerous thing present. What is? He started. Something hit him from the right. Not from the heather where the sound had come from. From the right. From the darkness beyond the car. And it hit him with a force that took him off his feet completely. One moment, he was standing at the car door, and the next, he was airborne. The gun spinning away into the dark, and then he was gone, off the road and into the heather. And the sounds that followed were immediate and wet and terrible. I heard Gary scream once. It was cut off very quickly. The three of us were on our knees on the road. None of us moved for what felt like a long time, but was probably about 4 or 5 seconds. The sounds from the heather continued for perhaps 30 seconds longer. Heavy, rhythmic impacts. The sound of something being systemically destroyed. And underneath it, a low resonance that sounded to come from whatever was doing it. Not a growl exactly. More like the sound a large engine makes at idle. A vibration that carried across the ground and up through my kneecaps where they pressed against the road. Then it stopped. The silence came back. The stars looked down at us from an indifferent sky. Get up, Owen said. Get up right now. Get in the car. The keys were still in the ignition. Owen got in the driver's seat. Carl and I piled into the back. Owen turned the key and the engine turned over and didn't catch. Turned over and didn't catch. And in the silence between attempts, the darkness beyond the windows felt close in a way that darkness usually doesn't. Come on, Carl said under his breath. Not to Owen, to the car, to the universe. To anything that might be listening that wasn't what was in the heather. The engine caught. The headlights came on automatically, and the road appeared. Pale tarmac cutting through the black moorland in both directions. No junctions visible, no landmarks, just the road and the dark, and the two of us breathing too hard in the back seat. Which way? Owen said. Forward, Carl said. Just go. Owen went. The car moved along the single track at a speed that the road probably didn't deserve, but the situation absolutely did. The headlights swinging with each curve, the heather on each side rushing past in that yellow light. I had my hand on the door handle without deciding to put it there. Carl had his face turned toward his window, watching the moorland, Don't look at it, Owen said. I'm not looking for it, Carl said. I'm looking for the road. We drove. For perhaps 2 minutes, nothing happened, and I had started to do the thing where you allow yourself a cautious breath, where you let the adrenaline begin its cloud retreat, where you start constructing a narrative of how this becomes a story you tell rather than the thing that is happening to you. Then Owen said, "Christ!" and hit the brakes. Something was standing in the road ahead of us. The headlights caught it at perhaps 40 meters, and what I saw in that first unguarded second, before my brain started trying to fit it into existing categories and failing, was scale. It filled the road, not just the width of the single track, but the height of the space above it, standing well above the roofline of the car even at that distance. And it was standing with the absolute stillness of something that had no reason to move, no concept of the car as a threat, nothing in its experience that had ever required it to step aside for anything. Owen swerved. The car went half onto the verge, bounced, came back onto the road, and the thing was behind us. Owen kept his foot down. "Don't stop," I said. I don't know why I said it. There was nowhere to stop that wasn't the middle of the mirror. But I said it anyway, and Owen nodded and didn't stop. The tire blew 4 minutes later. Rear left, a concussive thump, and the car lurched sideways, and Owen fought it and brought it to a stop, half on the verge with the back end down at an angle. He tried to drive on it. We made perhaps 15 meters of grinding, shuddering progress before the rim was on the road, and we all understood simultaneously that we were walking from here. "The spare," Carl started. "No time," Owen said. "We run. The road goes somewhere. All roads go somewhere. We run until we find a house or a car or a phone signal or anything." He was right. We got out. The cold when we stepped out of the car was worse than before, or felt worse because the car's warmth was gone and the walk was now a run, and the run was now the only plan we had. The road ahead was pale in the starlight, just visible enough to follow without a torch. We ran north, Owen in front, Carl in the middle, me at the back, and the only sounds were our footsteps and our breathing and the vast, indifferent wind moving across the heather on both sides. For the first 2 minutes, nothing. The road curved gently left and began a shallow climb, and I focused on Owen's back and on breathing and on putting distance between us and the car and whatever had been standing in the road. The sound came from the left, from the open moorland of the road, of movement through heather, heavy and fast, the noise of something large crossing ground. That ground like that shouldn't be crossable at that speed, not the careful, deliberate movement of an animal picking its way through the undergrowth, something running flat out in the dark on terrain that would have broken an ankle at walking pace. "Don't stop," Owen said. We didn't stop. The movement kept pace with us for perhaps 30 seconds, parallel to the road, 40 or 50 meters out. Then it stopped, cut off as sharply as a switch being thrown, and the silence that replaced it was the specific silence of something that had stopped moving because it chose to, not because it had lost us or tired or given up. The silence of something that was exactly where it wanted to be. We ran for another 2 minutes. I heard it come for Owen. That's the honest account. I didn't see it happen because it came from the right and I was looking left, still watching the moorland from where the sound had been. And what I heard was a displacement of air, a percussive rush, and then Owen made a sound that I carry with me every time I close my eyes. Not a scream, something more primal than a scream. The sound a person makes when something has happened to their body faster than their mind can process it. A raw, compressed burst of noise that was over almost before it began, because whatever had hit him with enough force to drive the air from his lungs completely. He was pulled off the road to the right. I spun toward the sound and got a fraction of a second of what the starlight and my dark adjusted eyes could give me. Owen lifted entirely off the ground, one arm extended at an angle arms don't extend, being carried into the heather at the speed that a thing carrying a grown man's full weight should not be able to move at. Then the heather closed around him, and the sounds began, and they were not short. I will tell you what I heard because you deserve the truth of this, and because pretending I can soften it would be a disrespect to Owen. I heard impacts, rhythmic, heavy, the sound of mass applied to mass with a force and a repetition that communicated absolute purposefulness. I heard Owen's voice once more. Not words, just sound. The sound a person makes from a very great distance from anything language can reach. And then I didn't hear his voice anymore. Only the impacts. And then after a while, not even those. Owen was my friend for 10 years. He organized things because he cared about people. He carried your bag without being asked. He was going to quit his job in January. I'm sorry, Owen. I'm so sorry. Carl grabbed my arm, I pulled, and I ran. We ran hard. Harder than I've run since I was a teenager. The kind of running that strips away everything except forward and fast in the next footfall. And the road was pale ahead of us, and the stars were very bright, and the moor on both sides was dark and opened and enormous. Carl's hand was on my wrist now, gripping hard enough to leave a mark I can still see as I type this. And we didn't speak, and we didn't look back, and we ran. The road descended, curved right. The surface improved. A white center line appeared, then cat's eyes. Then the road widened slightly. These were signs of something, of proximity to somewhere. I focused on them and let them be hope and ran toward them. I saw the police car at the bottom of the next straight, parked on the verge behind a large brown road sign, marker lights on, a speed camera tripod visible beside it, perhaps 50 meters away. The single most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. There, Carl said. And he said it the way you say things when you stop believing in the possibility and it's suddenly, possibly real. We ran toward it. 40 meters, 30. I could see the shape of the officer in the driver's seat, the blue tinge of a phone or a laptop screen, the ordinary bureaucratic reality of a traffic officer doing speed checks on a quiet road at 1 a.m, the most mundane and wonderful thing in the world. 25 meters. Carl was 2 steps ahead of me. He was going to make it. We were going to make it. 20 meters, and the thing came out of the heather to the left of the road. I saw it fully this time, and the spill of the police car's marker lights. And I'm going to tell you what I saw because I said I would, and because Carl deserves to have it witnessed. It came out of the heather, and it was on Carl before he had time to react. And what I had time to register in those 2 or 3 seconds was this. It was enormous, 4 meters at least from the ground to the highest point of it. And that highest point was a rack of something that curved upward and outward from the mass of its skull, the way antlers do, but heavier, darker, more deliberate looking, not branched but solid, like the horns of something that has been growing them for longer than anything alive. Its body was broad and low slung in a way that suggested both enormous power and the capacity for speed that its size shouldn't have allowed. The hide or skin or whatever covered it was dark, not black, a muddled, uneven darkness, like old bark or dried peat, textured in a way that explained why the headlights hadn't reflected off it properly, why it had blended with the moorlands so completely. Its forelimbs were long, disproportionately, wrongly long, and they ended in something that was not a hoof and not a hand, but had properties of both, and it used them with the precision that was worse than any amount of brute force would have been. It took Carl at a full run without slowing. Carl screamed. He was still screaming when I reached the police car. 10 meters past where it had taken him, and I was screaming too, screaming at the windscreen, hammering on the glass with both fists. The officer inside jolted upright, the laptop on the dash lurching. He was young, mid-20s, startled, processing. He rolled down the window rather than opening the door. The instinct of a man trained to keep the car as a barrier. "Help us," I said. I was barely coherent. There's something. It's taking my friends. It took Carl. He's right there. Sir, slow down. Please listen to me. I grabbed the window frame with both hands. My voice was shaking so badly it was almost useless. We had a driver. He pulled a gun. Something came out of the dark and killed him, and then he killed Owen, and now Carl is over there. Please, you have to. The officer's training was taking over. He was reaching for his radio, his eyes moving between me and the road. "How many individuals?" It's not a person," I said. "Please, you have to believe me. It's not a person. It's something." The officer's eyes went past my shoulder. His face changed. I turned around. It was standing in the road 15 meters behind the car. It had come out of the dark without a sound, and it was simply there, standing in the light. And in the full brightness of the police car's headlights, I saw it without the filter of panic and motion, and I wished to God I hadn't. The scale was even worse in clear light. Its head alone was the size of a car bonnet, carried low on a neck that was as thick as a tree trunk. And the horns that rose from the skull cast shadows on the road behind it that stretched long and strange. Its eyes, and I say this knowing how it sounds, were not reflective. Every animal's eyes reflect light at night. The tapetum, the shine you see in photographs. These didn't. They absorbed the light the same way its hide did. 2 patches of deeper darkness in a dark face, and the absence of that reflection was somehow the single most wrong thing about it. It looked at the car with those lightless eyes, and it was not a look of aggression or hunger or any emotion that mapped onto anything I had a word for. It was the look of something that was already certain of the outcome and was in no hurry. The officer had his door open. I don't know if it was getting out or trying to pull me in. He was saying something into his radio, and his voice had lost its professional calm, and he had his hand on his baton, which I remember thinking was the saddest thing I've ever seen. A young man with a baton facing something that had crossed his mirror for God knows how many centuries. Something that the land had grown around, through the way it grows around a buried stone. "Get back in the car," I said to him. "Close the door. Drive." He wasn't listening. He was staring at it. It moved toward us, not fast. The same unhurried, inevitable pace of something that has established that nothing ahead of it can outrun it when it decides to stop being slow. Each step placed with a weight that I felt in the soles of my feet through the tarmac. The horn swept the air above the road as it moved. The shadows they cast swept with them across the ground. "Get in the car." I grabbed the officer's arm. He turned to look at me, and his face had gone completely white. The blood drained in a way that I'd never seen in a real person before, only ever read about. And his mouth was open, and nothing was coming out. I let go of him and got in the car. I got in the driver's seat. The keys were in the ignition. I put it in drive. I looked in the rearview mirror, and the officer was still standing at the open door with his hand on the roof, and the thing was 10 meters away and closing, and I leaned across and pulled the door shut from the inside, and I put my foot on the accelerator. The car moved. I heard the officer shout. One short, sharp sound, not a word. And then the sound changed and became something else, and I did not look in the mirror again for 30 seconds. And by the time I did, the road behind me was empty and dark, and I was doing 70 on a single track road in the dark, and I put my foot down harder. The road widened. A junction appeared. An actual junction with a sign. Inverness 34. I took it without braking properly. The back of the car, stepping out and coming back, and I was on a 2-lane road heading southwest, and I put my car up to 80 and kept it there. I watched the mirror. For the first 2 minutes, the road behind me was empty. Black tarmac and cat's eyes and darkness. Then I saw it. Not on the road, alongside it, on the open moorland to the right of the carriageway, moving parallel, and it was keeping pace, not gaining, not falling back, keeping the same distance, as if the distance itself was a choice, as if it was making a point. 80 miles an hour on a road, and it was matching me across the open ground in the dark, and it wasn't even what looked like its full extension. I pushed the car to 90. The moorland began to give way to scrub forestry, the trees closing in on both sides of the road, and I lost sight of the tree line. For perhaps a mile, I couldn't see it. Then the trees opened out again, and it was still there, still parallel, still the same distance, still watching the car with those lightless eyes. The lights of a town appeared ahead, small, a cluster of orange against the dark hill behind, but real. Street lights, windows, the lit forecourt of a petrol station, the ordinary architecture of a place where people live their ordinary lives. I drove toward it at 90 miles an hour, and I did not look in the mirror, and I did not look at the moorland to the right, and I did not think about Owen or Carl or the police officer, not because I didn't care, but because if I thought about them for even a second, I was going to stop being able to drive, and stopping being able to drive was not something I could afford. The town reached out toward me in the headlights. The road became a street. The street lights came on overhead one by one like an escort. I saw a police station on the side road. Blue lamp outside, lights on inside, and I turned in and stopped in the middle of their car park and sat there with the engine running. I sat there for 3 minutes. The car park was lit. Nothing came into it. A figure appeared at the station window, looked out, disappeared. A moment later, the front door opened and an officer came out, cautious, reading the situation, one hand at his belt. I got out of the car. I don't know what I looked like. I know what I said. My friends were dead on the A938, and the police officer was dead, and something had killed them. And I had taken a police car, and I was sorry, and I needed help. I said it all in about 15 seconds. I watched his face do the thing faces do when the information arriving exceeds the available categories. He took me inside. Foil blanket. Tea. More officers. My statement. 3 times. A unit dispatched to the A938. That was 4 hours ago. I'm still here. No one has told me what the unit found, and I've stopped asking, because the faces of the officers going in and out of this room have told me enough. I've been looking at the window. The car park outside is lit. 3 police cars, a civilian vehicle, a lamppost, and behind the lamppost, the orange glow of the town, and beyond that, the dark of the hills. The hills are very dark. I keep telling myself it only moves across open ground, that it won't come into a town, into the light, into a building. I keep telling myself there's something that stops it, some boundary it doesn't cross. And I keep failing to think of any evidence for that belief beyond the fact that I needed it to be true. 34 miles from where Owen died to this car park. 90 miles an hour on a good road, and it was matching me across open woodland, and it looked like it had more left. It has been 4 hours. I don't know what 4 hours means to something like that. I don't know if it loses interest. I don't know if it followed me here, or whether it stayed on the Mur, and what that's better or worse, and whether the lights of this town mean anything to it at all. I keep looking at the window, at the edge of the lamppost light, where the orange become darkness. Something is standing very still. I'm going to knock on the door right now. I'm going to tell the officer outside that I need to be somewhere else. I'm going to be calm and clear, and I'm going to do it before I talk myself out of it. I'm going to do it right now. I am going to do it right now.